Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to From the Practice Room, episode 2.
Yes.
Today we will be talking about what is going on with classical music in quarantine right now with the whole situation, and how as musicians we can kind of, make our situation better, or be inspired and motivated and continue to make our art. So, before we begin, what is new, Mindy? What is up? Anything interesting inspiring you this week?
Oh my goodness. The huge. I just still practicing for my recital. I think I have 3 weeks left. Thinking about it kind of stresses me out, but it's fine. It's gonna be fun.
You have time,
I do.
You have
time. I have time. Yeah, basically just doing that, and then we have the UCLA piano department. We have a concert coming up on Tuesday over Zoom, and so I've been preparing for that. Yeah, that's
exciting.
That's what I've been up to.
Definitely, yeah.
What have you been up to?
I just wanted to bring up an interesting conversation I had with my parents the other day, because I've been thinking kind of a lot about what is going on with classical music now, and how, lots of concert halls have closed down. So I was just kind of thinking about what is going to happen after all of this, and how are concert halls and concerts going to look after all of this is over. And a lot of people talk about how many seats might be just they will be selling less seats, so people will be sitting kind of with 6 seats in between them. And my dad was just bringing up this interesting point about virtual reality, and it reminded me of that book Ready Player One, where everyone is just living in this virtual reality world. And sometime in the future, time from now, but someday in the future, that might be our reality. And it's kind of crazy to think that someday, going to a concert hall will be a complete virtual reality experience from home, where you kind of put on, all this sensory equipment, and then you experience that just from home, which is just crazy and mind blowing. And I don't even know how to make anything of that. So anyways, that kind of it just brings me to our topic today, because many musicians just have to spend a lot of time practicing from home, not really knowing when their next real performance will be. And it's hard to stay inspired, especially, with musicians. It's hard to stay inspired. It's for a lot of musician students, we have to do our lessons through Zoom. We don't really get to have our final, people don't get to have their final recitals, and you're going through that too, actually. And what are your thoughts about that?
The whole no live performance thing is it's tough. It's hard, because at least for me, I'm someone that really depends on kind of the presence of a live audience. And for me, I really feed off of that kind of energy. And also, I play a lot of chamber music. I collaborate with a lot of musicians, probably, let's say, 3 to 4 times a week. And, we don't have that anymore. And, so we kind of had to start doing things like someone records their track, I record over their track, and, put videos together in that way. Yeah. Which works, it's better than nothing, but
it's not the same.
It's definitely not the same, because, we started doing things like making a human click track, because sometimes you want to take rubato, and basically, someone that I was playing with, she literally counted out her beats and then slowed down where she was going to slow down. And it's not really ideal. And for me, again, playing with someone in the same room, it's such a cool feeling, because you can literally feel their breath and their energy, and you kind of bounce off of each other in that way. And so it's been hard in that respect. And same thing with our online lessons. Right? It's a very different experience with online lessons over Zoom or over Skype or FaceTime. It's not ideal as musicians. especially classical musicians, we depend on that acoustic sound. And so listening through a device like this, it's completely, well, I don't want to say it completely ruins it all, but in a sense, it takes away a lot of the authenticity of the sound. But what can we do, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have to make the most of it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, another thing is, for us as musicians, it's definitely such a struggle in that sense. But also, we need an audience, and not having that audience connection, that chemistry. It's also very hard not really knowing when we will get to perform for real again. Even doing a performance through live stream, I mean, there are ways, like if you do it through Zoom, where you might be able to see your audience's faces, but like through Facebook, Instagram, you don't. And there are just those kind of hearts and likes that people can put to kind of react to it, but they're not clapping.
Right. Yeah.
It's not the same immediate audience feedback or energy that you can get from a concert hall.
Right. Yeah. I think the biggest lesson I'm learning right now, especially during this time, is I think it's a great opportunity for us to really learn to depend on ourselves. We are ourselves, we're artists and we're musicians, and we should be able to make good judgments on our own performances and playing. And one of our UCLA professors, or ex-professors, he always said, we are our own best teacher. And so I think, this is a great opportunity for us to really, sometimes over Zoom lessons, your teacher can't help you with everything. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us just to grow and be extremely diligent and be very sensitive. And one way I found that's really helpful is just recording myself, and this is something you should be doing all the time, just recording yourself, listening back, taking notes. And, I think that's the best way to practice and learn.
Yeah, me too. My teacher actually, when we were getting through our last few Zoom lessons, she encouraged us to actually record ourselves and put it on YouTube and send her the link, rather than kind of do our lesson, like rather than kind of play it live through FaceTime or through Zoom, so that because the quality is a bit better. And it was really helpful for me, because even though I know that recording is an essential part of our own learning, I really had to kind of make sure I was doing that, especially now in quarantine. And it was kind of like that motivating factor to like actually do it. And now I'm doing it all the time, and it's been so helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So would you say that all of this is kind of causing a greater dependence on technology, in the sense that, we have to, like, some people are getting better equipment in order to, so what do you think about that?
Definitely. I think, the situation right now that we're in, it's not ideal, but I can't imagine what it would have been like to live in this kind of situation back then, where there is no technology. And so especially now in these times, I'm very appreciative for technology, because, we're allowed to do things like this. Like, you and I can make a podcast, right? Yeah. Over Zoom, and we can still have lessons with our teachers and listen to performances online, blah, 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 things like that. And so I think technology has really been kind of a savior in this time. And, with you were mentioning buying better equipment to enhance your recording quality or your lessons. For me, I had to get an external mic in order to help with my lessons as well. And it did make a significant difference. And so I am thankful that we're able to get a hold of these things, and that it's making a difference. And, we're doing the best that we can with what we definitely have. Yeah.
Yeah, I came across an interesting article also this week in the New York Times. I think it was written about a year ago, but it was about the great pianist Sviatoslav Richter. And So basically, in the article, it's a very interesting article. It's called "The Pianist and the Lobster." I will leave you to it to read it to figure out why. But yes, so there was just an interesting part that really caught my attention, where he was talking about how he hates studio recordings, and of course he much preferred live performance in front of an audience. And he was basically saying that people place more value on the technical quality of a recording rather than the musical connection.
Yeah.
And as a direct quote, he says, "People are further than ever from nature and from genuine human feelings, and are gradually turning into machines themselves."
Whoa.
And of course, I think this would be actually an interesting topic for another episode, because it goes into so much. But I was specifically wondering what you think this relates to kind of the situation now, and how we can sort of avoid the effect of tech dependence when that is our only way of doing things right now.
I think it's sad to say this, but inevitably it's affected us all. You know, the fact that we have recording technology right now that's at such a high quality, you know, it's inevitable that we turn to those recordings and set that kind of as our standard. You know, back then, the only way to listen to a performance is to go physically go to a concert, and then you hear that performer play whatever they're playing that time, and then you walk away from it and you'll never be able to hear it again. It's like a very one-time experience type thing. And so now, you know, I think it's inevitable that we're all affected by the recording industry and everything. But I think it's important to remember why we do what we do, and why, first of all, why you love what you do. And I think if you have that, inevitably you know, you have to be able to stand on these facts, what you believe in, your philosophy on music. And I think if you have that, that will reflect in your performance. And hopefully people will catch on to that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think also now having this time in quarantine is a great time to kind of figure that out for yourself too, to think about what it is about music that you love, that you want to communicate. Yeah, so let's move on to kind of our experience with staying positive, staying motivated, staying inspired in quarantine. You know, we're stuck at home, but does that mean that we have to practice for 10 hours a day? No. I think not. I think there is a kind of truth in being able to spend less time at your instrument, and something that I think is very effective actually is practicing for shorter amounts of times, but more frequently throughout the day. And this like research calls it distributed practice, and it's been known to be very effective in whatever you do, because separating kind of, you know, it's just, you can be more focused, more productive in a shorter amount of time. And the more frequently you do it, the more you are reinforcing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I personally, because I've been dealing with an injury, and I took about 6 to 7 weeks off of practicing. And so when I came back to it, I wanted to be sure that I wasn't overworking my hands, and to give my body a lot of time to rest in between practicing. And so I told you this, Polina, but I've been doing this thing that I call HIIT practicing. It's like HIIT workouts, but it's
so high intensity interval training.
Yes, exactly. And so what it is I basically practice, let's say, anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes. 45 minutes is really pushing it, because my hand can only handle so much right now, but just a short amount of time, and then taking maybe 10 to 15 minutes break, and then coming back to it for maybe 20 to 30 minutes, and then kind of doing that on and off throughout the day. And I have to say, you know, my body feels good, but also mentally, I feel a lot better when I come back to it, because I come in and I'm kind of a clean slate I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It like
Yeah,
resets everything,
yes,
kind of,
that,
right?
yeah, exactly. Resetting my brain and everything, because I find when I practice for a long period of time, which, I do that all the time, because sometimes you kind of just get lost in your practicing, and
Hmm.
either because you're stressed and you're super anxious, and then you keep kind of, almost mindlessly practicing sometimes.
Yeah.
um, my mind begins to get really cluttered and clouded, and I'm practicing out of fear and not with any sort of clear intention or goal. And I think the issue really with practicing long periods of time at once, is really that you fall into um, you fall you fall into, you know unfocused practicing or unproductive practicing. And so, yeah, I personally have been practicing myself just to, section off my practicing and to do a little bit at a time. And, in this regard, it really is quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to practice that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I will never forget my freshman year at UCLA. My professor at the time, who he retired that year, but he would always talk about he was always talking about smart practice, not
Mm.
hard practice, because he was always kind
Mm-hmm.
of bashing on me for like thinking I needed to, like work so hard and everything. But he was like, no, you need
Yeah.
to practice, work smart. And
Mm-hmm.
he was a very funny guy. He said that he could only really like sit still and practice for 20 minutes
I
at a
remember.
time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't know. I think that has always stuck with me ever since. And a lot of
Yeah.
the greatest pianists, they're always talking about like if you're practicing for more, or if you have to practice for more than 3 to 4 hours
Mm-hmm.
a day, then you're doing something wrong. And I always just
Whoa.
try to kind of keep that in the back of my head. It's like kind
Yeah.
of question myself, am I am I
Mm-hmm.
practicing with a focused goal and intention and everything?
For sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, I think it's not necessarily like, oh, if you're practicing 4 hours a day, then you're screwed, and you're not
No,
getting anywhere.
for sure not that.
Yeah. It's not to say that, but I think the point really is, as I mentioned before, the longer you kind of sit in front of the piano or sit in front of your instrument, whatever, it's easy to fall into kind of, this unfocused type of practicing. And, depending on your piece, and also I think depending on your level and where you're at with your pieces, if you're at the beginning stages of your pieces, maybe you do need 3 hours to just to feel comfortable with the notes,
Mm-hmm.
but also, again, it just depends on where you are, um, your level, and where you are with your pieces. But anyways, main point is that you want to always try to practice focused, and goal oriented practicing.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
also, I mean, practicing can also always be done away from your instrument, like mental
exactly.
practicing, score studying, listening to
Yeah.
music, figuring out your ideas so that when you get to
Hmm.
your instrument, you know what you want from it.
Yeah, for sure. Um, this is one of my, or I think used to be one of my biggest insecurities. If I wasn't sitting in front of a piano for a long period of time during the day, I would feel extremely anxious. And
Same.
yeah, and I almost felt guilty when I
Me
wasn't sitting
too.
in front of my instrument,
It
right?
really would get to my head, yes. Like I would
Yeah.
just be sitting and I'd be like thinking like, "Oh my goodness, I
Mm-hmm.
have to practice."
Yeah, and almost just sitting in front of a piano, I would feel more secure, which
Yeah.
sounds really weird. Um, but again, it's really not. I've really come to learn that it's really not about how much time you're spending in front of your instrument,
Yeah.
especially during this time, that 6 to 7 week period I wasn't practicing. I couldn't sit in front of the piano, and so I had to spend a lot of time figuring out how I wanted to keep myself inspired, because I really didn't want to just kind of become lazy and,
Mhm.
not use my time productively. And so, of course, doing things like you said, listening to your pieces, studying the score, away from the piano. Um, I had to do a lot of that, and that's something I forget to do a lot, on a normal basis because we're so eager to want to play our pieces, right? And either that or you're kind of anxiously trying to make deadlines and you kind of rush to get to a place where you can physically play the pieces. But, practicing away from the piano, just like you said, is so important. And I think that's something that also has to do with our podcast name, right? We talked about in episode 1, one of our main goals is to kind of break down these confining walls that we traditionally call the practice room. And really just to allow yourself to redefine what that space is for you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, this box-shaped room or rectangular-shaped room with a piano in it, It could even just be the outdoors, being in nature, going to a museum, or maybe just even your bedroom, just a space where you can allow yourself to be open-minded and to explore and be inspired, and then bringing that back to your practice room and to your practicing afterwards.
Yeah, this will go on to something that I want to say later on, but I always think about the pianist Luca Dubarg, who when I first heard him, I heard him when I didn't hear him live, but I remember hearing him through a live stream of the Tchaikovsky piano competition, and he was just very interesting because I remember when everyone else was practicing, there was this video where he was just talking about how he went to an art museum, because
I love that.
Yeah, to him, like, it wasn't about sitting in like what's it called, hammering down the notes and trying to feel secure and everything about performing. Like, to him, it was such a different experience. It was an inspiring, like, open-hearted, I don't know, experience where to him it felt like going to see art was going to be inspiring to him. And so that'll get into something. That story. Yeah, me too. I'm always inspired by it.
Again, kind of just to wrap this all up, I guess, it's so important to take time away from the piano to gain perspective from your real life and real life events. Music is such a human thing, and so we don't want to spend all our time locked up in this room. And just to allow yourself to go out and experience life and to be inspired by real life. And I think that can make a huge impact on your playing, even your practicing, and just your whole mindset regarding music. Yeah.
And even in quarantine right now, where we can't really go to art museums or a theater or a movie theater, there's still so much that is out there. Either like films, other kinds of music. You don't just have to listen to your pieces.
Totally.
What else is there? There are ballets that are being live streamed, like the Mariinsky Ballet, the Bolshoi Theater. There are other concert halls that are doing that. There was a time where the Berlin Philharmonia was offering their archive to listen to.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still going on, but I had listened to them for some time. Books.
Yeah.
Interesting books. I think both of us are very interested in kind of self-help, self-guiding, like books about how to deal with the mind. Yeah, do you have any books like that you would like to share?
Yeah, one book in particular that helped me a lot was The Inner Game of Music. So originally it was The Inner Game of Tennis, but then someone else wrote kind of the music version. But even just The Inner Game of Tennis, it talks so much about just our mind and how much our mind controls our whole body. And then in that book, I think it was the first time I really learned about this concept of self one and self two, and how in each of us we have these two selves. Because, for example, when we say like, oh, I always tell myself, blah, 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 we have the I telling myself, right? So that alone, you see two different kind of entities, I guess. And so when we're performing, a lot of times, the reason why we feel anxious or the reason why we get nervous, things like that, oftentimes is because the self one and the self two aren't working together, aren't trusting each other. And so I forget which is which, but one of the selves is basically your mind and the other is your body. And anyways, the book just talks a lot about how to kind of get to a point where you trust those two parts of yourself, because they really have to work together in order for you to have a smooth, well, I mean, in whatever you're doing, whether you're playing tennis or, playing music or just any kind of sport, art, whatever you're doing that, requires, what am I trying to say? Like, basically, in a lot of things we do, our mind just comes in between our body and what we can actually do. And so, anyways, yeah, that book was really helpful for me because that was the first time I realized, whoa, like, there's these two different parts of me. And then just working on how I can allow my body to trust my mind and my mind to trust my body.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I had this one book that I remember really impacted me. It was called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that was also one of the first moments where I really realized how you can control your thoughts and also how to be comfortable with failure. Presence, ever since then, presence has become something so important to me. And when playing, I think before I used to be so worried about the future or about the past. I was never really living in the present. And coming into that present moment is just so vital to what we do also as musicians.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was just a very eye-opening book. There are so many out there. And also, aside from self-help books, of course, classic literature, reading just really good literature. I definitely need to do that more, but it's very important also. Yeah. Let's see. Another thing I wanted to talk about was social media. As you know, I think as many have realized, our screen times have gone up a lot. Not even just using social media, but because we have to take classes through Zoom, meetings through Zoom, and it's just we're using our screens so much more now. And
totally.
There was also with that comes social media, of course, and there are all these facts that everybody knows. Like, for example, people who spend 7 hours on screens are twice as more likely as others to develop anxiety or depression. And then, productivity-wise, 1 minute on social media basically causes you to lose 25 minutes of actual work time. And so when you kind of think about this all, it's, social media can be very harmful to what we want to do. Of course, there are so many benefits to it as well. If you have a message to spread, there are so many great things about it too, but just being mindful about its use. And I know, Mindy, you decided that you were going to kind of ease off of social media for some time. And I was wondering if you would like to talk about that experience.
Yeah. I think it all started basically during that period of time that I wasn't practicing, and I realized I was spending a lot more time kind of just scrolling through my phone, mindlessly scrolling, and just realizing how much time I was wasting on the apps, and not really getting anything out of it. And so I initially decided, I was like, okay, I kind of just want to take a break from social media, take a social media cleanse for just 1 week, and see what it kind of does for me. And especially, because I had to prepare for my recital coming up, and there were things that I needed to be doing, but I was just neglecting. And so I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll take a week off, see how it goes. And the first couple of days, it was really tempting. But I have to say, after a couple of days, I didn't really even think about it. It wasn't even on my mind, because in the beginning I was like, am I gonna feel FOMO? I want to know what my friends are doing in
fear
quarantine.
Of missing out.
Yeah. And maybe I did for like a day, but then after that I was I felt just a lot more present, and I just felt like my mind automatically just became decluttered, and all of a sudden I had all this time to do things that I wanted to do that I never got to do. And anyways, so that went on for about a week, and then after a week I was like, you know what, I think I can keep going. And since then it's been about 3, almost 4 weeks since I've been off social media. Of course, I pop in once in a while. After that week, I started to kind of pop in, no more than like 3 times a week, I want to say. And yeah, I really don't I feel like I've gotten to a point where I feel like I don't absolutely need it, and I
Yeah.
feel okay. Um, and one thing that it's done for me, I think, it's kind of nice to be able to constantly see what your friends are doing and, the stories that they post. And it's a great way to kind of to keep caught up with your friends and their lives,
Mm-hmm.
especially right now since we can't see each other. But I just found that being off social media kind of forces me to actually talk to people when I want to
Mm-hmm.
know what they're doing and what they've been up to, and to really have that human connection.
Yeah.
Because normally I'd kind of just like be swiping and, oh, they're doing this, oh, they're doing that. But then I think it's really actually opened a lot more opportunity for me to actually have a real conversation with people and to catch up with people in that way. So overall, I would say very positive experience.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I just think remembering to definitely just be mindful about it. If needing to do a cleanse is something that would help that, then I think that's an amazing thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, another thing is, or another part of being inspired, I think, as musicians is doing, whether you do your own live streams or
Mm-hmm.
run throughs with friends. We've actually been doing run throughs
Yeah.
every week, or we've kind of started doing that. And it's honestly very helpful in motivating you to kind of get something ready. There's a time, like, of course, we are doing it no judgment at all. We're just there to help each other. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's just
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And being able to do that with some friends is
Yeah,
a great way to stay inspired.
totally. I think it's so important also just to find people who you can really trust, and to be able to play for one another in that way. For us, I totally trust you, and I'm not afraid to kind of make mistakes because I know that you don't judge, and normally while we're at school, this is something we do all the time, just to kind of grab the person who's practicing next door, grab them in and, hey, can you listen to me play through this excerpt or blah, blah, blah. And I always find that to be really helpful. And so I'm really glad, again, another thing, we have technology right now, and that's been helping with all of this. And it's really been a great help to still be able to play for your peers during this time. I think that's
Yeah,
something that
definitely.
we should always practice. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great way to grow and to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely
Oh,
agree. Mm-hmm.
sorry, I don't mean to go backwards, but about technology, I think something that's really awesome right now is you see so many people just reaching out to each other during
Mm-hmm.
this time, especially, and especially professionals reaching out to different people. For example, I saw Ray Chen doing a masterclass on YouTube, which, normally I don't think he's done that before. But because
Mm-hmm.
of the circumstance, he decided to put this thing out there. And I think it's really cool that he's reaching out to, people like us,
Yeah.
young aspiring musicians. And I also saw the Juilliard students did this amazing, absolutely incredible Bolero video, and
Yeah, I
Yo-Yo
saw
Ma
that.
joined them. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yo-Yo Ma, and like who else? Like Renee Fleming, John Batiste, like all these
Yeah.
legends. And anyways, I just think even though right now, we're going through a really unprecedented time, and for some people, we're really struggling, but I think what's really come out of it is something beautiful, I think.
Something
With all
new
of
and yeah. Yeah, something new,
yeah,
different, and it's definitely worth paying attention to
for sure.
appreciating. Yeah, I also
Yeah.
along with that, I've been seeing there are ballet choreographers and contemporary choreographers who I've been watching through Instagram. They'll be doing a live masterclass because now I think on Instagram you're able
Mhm.
to kind of have more than one person do a live stream at a time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
being able to see them work together is
Yeah.
it's not something that you would be able to just see, otherwise.
Totally. Yeah. and even like not even speaking about music, Obama spoke to the graduating class, right?
Yeah.
And what's his John Krasinski, he threw a prom on YouTube and like invited a bunch of artists to come and perform. And
Yeah.
you know, I just think it's so awesome that we're reaching out to each other in this kind of way, and I believe it says something really positive about humanity.
Yeah, I think people are definitely using this time to come together, and that's, I think it's incredible. So we're coming to the end of our podcast, but before we continue, before we
Did you want to talk about yoga?
Sure. Okay, fine. Okay. Something else that I wanted to kind of talk about is yoga and just exercise also in general, and being able to keep your body and your mind healthy at the same time. And for me, yoga is actually just an amazing way to do that. When I first found yoga, it was the perfect way for me to challenge both my mind and my body. And I've only felt positive effects from it. And so I try to do it as much as I can. I, even if that just means kind of doing a couple of sun salutations or coming back to my breath, it's been a great way to stay centered and grounded. And Mindy, actually, you have an experience with this too, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to talk
first
about
of all, I said this in last podcast, but again, Polina is an amazing yoga sculpt instructor. And no, really, because I just appreciate taking your classes twice a week, and it really helps me, and I feel so much better. For a long time, I had very consistent headaches and migraines, and it was kind of a product of just everything. My back was tense, my shoulders, neck, everything. And I literally tried everything, to try to help it, but I still consistently got those headaches all the time. And then Polina was like, you know what you should do? You should do yoga. And I was like, I really didn't think too much about it in the beginning because I had tried so many different things, but really, I'm not kidding. Ever since, I think, when did you tell me to try that?
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe like even a month or
ago,
more than
maybe.
A month ago. Okay. Yeah, and I've consistently been doing yoga even when you're not teaching yoga on non-yoga teaching days, whatever you call it. I'd wake up every morning and even just do 5 minutes of yoga, stretching and breathing. And I'm not kidding. Ever since then, I have not gotten a single headache related to my tension. And so, it really works. And I just, in general, I feel so much better, and my breathing is so much deeper because I never really, I'm someone who, I guess, I don't know if this is common with people, but I almost never take like a full breath. Almost never.
I think it's common. People just don't realize it. And even when playing, I remember before I was doing yoga a lot, I didn't realize that I was holding my breath a lot.
Yeah, same. I was going to say that in my practicing, I realized I was like taking these really deep breaths and yoga kind of helped me figure that out and realize that I wasn't taking deep enough breaths. And breathing is really important. We take it for granted because we breathe kind of automatically and we don't think about it. But honestly, anyways, we can go on about this. But point is, yoga's great. Y'all should try it. Maybe hit up Polina. She's an awesome instructor. So anyways.
It's honestly, I just think I love yoga so much. And there are so many ways that you can get access to it right now, whether that be through YouTube. A lot of yogis are doing Instagram lives. Core Power Yoga has a few free yoga on demand videos. It's out there. So you just got to take advantage of it. So now that brings us to our tune of inspiration for the week.
Yay!
So I wanted to choose a piece that actually was, it was, part of something that is going on right now that could kind of relate to our topic. And that is Bach's Partita No. 2 in C minor.
Ooh.
So I'll just play a little excerpt from the beginning of that right now. Yes.
Oh, so good.
It's an absolutely brilliant piece. Something I want to mention. It's in the key of C minor, which is a very interesting key. It's one of my favorite keys. It's a very tragic but dignified key. You know, pieces that are written in this key, like Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 that everybody knows, with fate knocking on the door. Beethoven's Opus 111 has that intense opening, and it's a very interesting key. Do you have anything to say about that?
Not really, except that, yeah, I know C minor is your favorite key. You really like that, the dark stuff, the heavy dark stuff.
The dark
which is
stuff.
Awesome, which is great. I'm currently playing the
it.
Schubert C minor, so.
Yeah. Oh, yes, the Schubert C minor. I forgot about that too. But yeah, it's just absolutely insane and brilliant piece. I'm currently working on it right now, and so the reason I chose is because although I love it so much, it's been really hard to motivate myself to really work on it as like with the precision that Bach really requires. But Bach is great for the soul. It's a piece that you know, it encompasses so much. If you can play Bach, like everything else will just come. I noticed for myself that everything else just comes so much more naturally, easier. Even Chopin, you know, had his students, I think he wanted them to play through all the preludes and fugues, because that's just how important Bach is. And yeah, I still find the piece incredibly intimidating. I've been working on it for a while now, but I'm still intimidated by it. I am working on it. I'm trying to, you know, get there though. But yeah, the piece, I mean, a little bit about it is it's in 6 parts. There's a Sinfonia, Allemande, Courante, Sarabande, Rondo, and Capriccio. They're all in different characters, different moods, different styles. It feels honestly like you're playing 10 preludes and fugues. I'm not even kidding.
Honestly,
there.
Yeah. It's colossal.
So, yeah, I just wanted to share that piece. It's one of my favorites. That's why I chose to play it. And yeah. Anything you would like to mention about the piece?
I haven't actually attempted any of the Bach partitas or the larger suites, but I've actually been really inspired by you, because I just admire your bravery and your courage on taking on such a big work. And, you know, you've been running it through for me in our run-throughs, and I just see your progress with it. And it's absolutely, I love the way you play it, and I think it's going to be great. And I'm really excited, to hear you perform it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that brings us to the end of our second episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Very excited to have you here. We are working on trying to get our social medias up for this podcast sometime, hopefully soon. And yeah, we hope to see you next time. Happy practicing.
Happy practicing.
Happy practicing, everyone. And yeah, bye. See you next time.
Bye. See you next time. Woo!